Hello, everyone, dear colleagues, dear friends of ICARUS. Welcome to our 7th online lecture. By the way, the last one in this season, let's say so. We have summer break before we follow with our activities in September. And today we will hear about an interesting project being realized at the University Federico II in Naples, named iMILK, which is an abbreviation of Innovative Mobile Interactive Learning and Knowledge. So it's something like a learning management system, and an introduction about this project will be given to us by our dear colleague, Professor Antonella Ambrosio, who is, let's say, one of the pillars of our ICARUS community at the very beginning, some 14 years ago. She was leading also our work group didactics and established the program ICARUS for Education, which is somehow revived with this event, I would say. So Antonella Ambrosio is the professor of palaeography and diplomatics at the University Federico II in Naples, Department of Humanities. She will, as I said, give an introduction to the project, and then we will get it presented by Flavia Santoianni and Alessandro Ciasullo, also professors at the Department of Humanities of the University Federico II in Naples. So let's enjoy the presentation. Antonella, you have the word, please.
Thank you, Zarko, for your presentation, your kind of presentation, introduction. Good afternoon to all. I'm very glad to introduce this ICARUS lecture. Flavia Santoianni will present the project, and this lecture arises from the activity of the ICARUS didactics group within the ICARUS for Education area. Flavia and Alessandro are very active in this group, the ICARUS didactics group, and I'm sure that this aspect will have an important value for the future of this group. Today's lesson will concern the mobile learning design, and in particular about the iMILK project. Even if Flavia and Alessandro will use two slightly different perspectives. At this point, I would like to briefly introduce Flavia to you. Flavia Santoianni is full professor of education at the University of Naples Federico II. She is director of the Gold Open Access Journal Research Trends in Humanities and Research Trends in Humanities Lab, where she carries on research on digital brain education and technology, enhanced learning in the brain education cognition area. She teaches in the philosophy degree course. Flavia has published 27 books and several national and international articles. Her books are translated into English and Spanish from Italian language. Authoress of the Theory of Basic Logic, her research interests concern bioeducational sciences, teaching and learning, learning environment design, digital humanities, and digital education. Flavia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Antonella. Good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for kind invitation, and a special thanks again to Antonella. Maybe Alessandro, tu puoi condividere le slide?
Sono pronto.
Allora metti la presentazione.
Perfetto.
Allora, let's start. Over the last 20 years, research on mobile learning has gradually developed through personalized approach, increasingly centered on the student, on the socialized co-construction of knowledge, and on the authenticity of experiences in different contexts. A new frontier is nowadays developing experimental models of education, which focus on the synergy between emerging technologies, individual and social interaction, and adaptive knowledge processes. The groundbreaking educational frontier aims to the enhancement of 21st century skills, which are recognized to be both individual and collective, including personal competencies such as self-regulation, critical thinking, problem solving, and flexibilities, and social competencies as teamwork, communication, and interaction. Personal and social competencies related to 21st century skills are in the same entanglement with the 21st century digital skills, and educational efforts should be addressed to melt together individual, collective, and digital skills. 21st century digital skills, if applied to archives, may include, apart the knowledge of archival science, palaeography and diplomatics, history in a digital environment, competencies of self-regulation and critical thinking for detailed digital archival and documentation description and ordering, and competencies of flexibility and problem solving to manage digital techniques of archives, and expertise in the conservation of digital archival units. But all these personal competencies should be joined by digital social skills. Moreover, mobile digital skills are to be considered as a booster to empower 21st century digital skill for auxiliary disciplines and history, not only because they involve digital social skills, but also because mobile digital skills are characterized by authentic experiences in flexible contexts, continuous shifts from formal to informal learning, adaptive self-regulation, and strategic self-efficacy. Alessandro, we can go on point 2. Future directions of mobile learning include the design of learning management systems, which mix knowledge development with real-life interactivity. iMILK Innovative Mobile Interactive Learning and Knowledge is a learning management system project designed to co-create a mobile educational path for university education. And here is presented for eventual interest from archivists, scholars of palaeography, diplomatics, and history. At the base of this educational path is the use of mobile devices. This educational path is an example of how we can use the schematization according to which mobile learning processes are first interactive, then authentic, collaborative, personalized, and situated, while mobile teaching processes are student-centered and concern activities, resources, contents, and contexts. Interactive mobile learning processes are linked to active online and real-world tasks and involve the participation to a learning community in which teachers and students can interact together. Authentic mobile learning processes mean that practical life and real life experiences, including coping with ill-structured problems, are oriented to the achievement of personal goals. And collaborative mobile learning processes foresee the sharing of learning content, the co-construction of knowledge, meta-reflection, and critical thinking. Mobile learning processes are personalized, that is, measured at own personal pace, tailored on individual cognitive differences, and even engaging according to interests of individuals, and situated in contingent formal-informal context, where to carry on adaptive tasks shaped by users in an experiential and context-aware way. Student-centered teaching processes are rooted on scaffolded learning and peer tutoring, deeply involving students to support the openness to learners' generative ideas. Teaching activities are designed to develop both individual discovery experiences and co-working, shared in classroom and flipped at home. Teachers' guidance is linked to game-based learning, encouraging curiosity and creativity approaches, soliciting emotions, and offering contents near to students' motivational aims and oriented to teaching desired outcomes. Alessandro, siamo al punto 3. Al punto 2, scusami. The iMILK project is available on the website, maybe it's written, Antonella wrote to you, iMILK Mobile Learning WordPress. The goal of this educational path is to learn how to teach. But the teaching topics can be multiple and may cover different disciplines. The teaching models in formal and non-formal environments have been used as only the first experimental case. The beginning of the iMILK educational path foresees a situated survey in which students fill in a form to identify their level of skills and mostly their personal learning preferences. A key point is that original innovation is welcome. And then students should know what they can always suggest, a change in the iMILK educational path, as for instance, an integration of the required content. A working group is organized through a reference website where teaching materials and feedbacks are delivered on time, supported by blogs for chatting and emails. The educational path includes mobile digital activities, which are designed to comply with all the teaching and mobile learning criteria. Mobile digital activities are bottom-up experiences proposed by students to be carried on in formal and informal, in presence or digital, sociocultural context in relation to specific disciplinary domains. Teachers ask the students to propose in the activities blog which experiences they would like to apply, and at the same time, teachers post some examples of experiences that are fun and intriguing. Students propose the experiences they have chosen as an activity to be carried on and discuss them together in the blog. After this phase, experiences are implemented by students who write a story describing their own, also multimedia experience that will be published on the story's blog. Here follow some reflections that more strictly concern archival science as a discipline to be taught, both in academic context and in archives, libraries, or schools, but they naturally also apply by analogy to palaeography, diplomatics, and for other similar disciplines. In the archival context, archival literacy has been defined as the knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary to effectively and efficiently find, interpret, and use archives, manuscripts, and other types of unique unpublished primary resources. Archival literacy concerns information-related activities, skills, and processes to identify the sources, to find, evaluate, and organize the needed information, and to use it effectively. To develop learning archival research skills in history courses, it's needed by archivists to fill in an educational gap for history students, overcoming the actual lack of standards and the current trial and error approach. Then, what skills historians need to become archival researchers? Research techniques to implement archival principles and research methods to use archival materials can be trained by the iMILK project, which can be used by both students on history and archival research under the guidance of archivists involved in teaching processes. Archival anxiety has been defined as a phenomenon in which students may be afraid of meeting various rules of accessing and handling archives, having the feeling to be unfamiliar with using archival finding aids, may be afraid of encountering problems in browsing archival collections, and may be afraid of losing the orientation between the different organization of collection in libraries and archives. To overcome archival anxiety, after a survey prepared by archival teachers on iMILK to test students' archival research skills in history, students are encouraged to post in the activities blog proposal of mobile digital activities to carry on formal and informal experiences in real-world archives previously discussed with archival teachers. Students propose the experiences they have chosen, and after having implemented them, students write a story to be published in the story blog. Experiences in real-world professional archival repository are indeed seen as boosters to reduce students' archival anxiety to increase students' self-confidence. Archival intelligence and its competencies as research methodology, procedures in archival repository, knowledge of archival terminology, cataloging, representing, and interpretation of records, identifying the historical context, can be provided by a training in iMILK content page, that is the repository of learning materials. While for the educational pathway, this page contains information concerning teaching models, in the archival pathway, this page could contain information about how to learn common techniques, about preservation, organization, and archival processing, and how to gain key archival skills. For instance, Information about the significance of primary sources can be made available. How to distinguish different repositories of primary sources as archives, libraries, museums, and collections can be explained. And what examples of types of materials held in each kind of repository, and suggestion on how to use bibliographic database and repositories websites, including archival finding aids, which can be given. Other information to be provided in the content page can be related to the suitable research questions which can be answered through primary sources. Why sometimes you cannot find sources, and how to overcome this problem by alternative search strategies. How to recognize historical handwritten scripts and outmoded printed scripts or fonts. To be downloaded learning materials can be about print and electronic primary sources in a digital environment, how to critically analyze and interpret them, and how to effectively communicate with archivists using disciplinary terms for having the guidance. More information can concern publication protocols and how to quote published and unpublished sources, and how to obtain permissions of use from repositories, for instance. Then, archival teachers prepare some labels related to the identified key archival processing and skills, focusing on core aspects to underline as better characterizing the professional archivist. According to the grounded theory methodology, labels will be downloaded by students from the labels page of the website and inserted in the stories blog to match the emerging links between archival learning, processing, and skills and the mobile digital activities experienced by each student. The reciprocal activity of critical interpretation of mobile digital activities experienced by all involved students co-creates a knowledge community, which deeply discusses on archival content or on educational content, as it has already been done in a previous project, but published only in Italian, through both a self-paced and an instruction-led approach, which may enhance archival teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Flavia. I'm sorry for the image in this moment. Alessandro, I'm sorry. Alessandro,
I am here.
I'd like to introduce Alessandro Ciasullo. Alessandro is a researcher in education at the same University of Flavia, University of Naples, Federico II. Is qualified as associated professor in experimental pedagogy. He teaches experimental pedagogy in courses for teacher training and pedagogy and special education at the same university. Alessandro has published several national and international papers. His research interests include music education, teaching and learning, bioeducational sciences, the design of real and virtual learning environments, and the relationship between learning and sound. Alessandro, the floor is yours.
Thank you for invitation. Nice to know you. Nice to meet you in a virtual world. Okay, I try to explain the relation of two kinds different of research area, your research area and our research area. Before preparing for this talk, I have read the introduction to the book Archives, Principles and Practice by Laura Miller. To deepen your interesting research area, I needed to understand the point of view of a scientist of your field to try to combine it with the educational visions of educational research. I immediately found initial evidence in Miller's volume, the use of metaphors to explain archival science and its requirements. Even in pedagogy, metaphor is a logical linguistic pathway that can represent complex general concepts with symbol and rhetorical images. Metaphors do not simplify things, but make them better identifiable through what we may call rhetorical devices. How do approach material organization to let them be consulted, preserved, and sorted? How to prepare archival education for the transition from paper to digital? How to build a curriculum for training pre-service and in-service archivists? Miller, in her text of the Principles and Practices, uses the metaphor of a recipe and talks about two main procedures to arrive at preparing a good dish. The first is to reproduce verbatim what is written inside to prepare a recipe faithful to the original. The second one focuses on the principle of cooking, the concept of heat transfer, the quality of different cuts of meat, the chemical reaction that cause beef fibers to soften. A recipe, then, is not the full application of a framework for managing complexity, but it may be seen instead as at the synergy of general parameters which can guide actions. Actions and experiences can derive from general parameters, both direct primary indications and second-level indication that are more general, but equally important for directing the gaze toward horizons and choices of meaning. It is the same for educational field, in which a complex relationship exists between theory and praxis. Is it more useful to have theoretical principles or reference or only actions may orient experiential education? In her volume, Models and Tools of Teaching, Approach to Improve the Teaching Experience, Flavia Santoianni uses the same metaphor of recipe to describe the main classical, current, and experimental educational theories, both theoretical and practical, together. Main educational models and their practical implication are analyzed without yielding to the temptation either to consider theoretical principles as self-sufficient or in a practice teaching as free from any reflection. A mediation between different ingredients and the operational quantities is then required. Mixing, cross-fertilizing, merging, stitching, and linking different principles and theories according to specific needs leads to development of even new concrete hypotheses related to the needs which continuously arise in each context. The verb that more than others seems to me to meet the challenge of mediating between archival science and education is the verb to form. the dynamic condition of giving a form characterizes both education and archivists, which solicit, which solicits transformations, reorganization, attribution, coherence, and order to documents, papers, and correspondences, but also curricular construction of archival professionals is encouraged. Throughout history, the idea of specific training for archivists also entailed the creation of real archival schools. One of the first in the pre-unification of Italy was precisely the School of the State Archives on Naples, founded in 1811. Then, as now, there is therefore the need to build a professional profile that is culturally strong concerning the field he deals with, able to apply principles of critical reflection for the choices being made, aware of the validity of a reliability of the choices that guide archival description and other similar activities, a mediation between tradition and innovation by knowing the one and the other, familiar with the core characteristics of the tools he uses, training and retraining both content and tools, develop new recipes and strategies, communicating an idea through the analysis of information and its preservation, reflecting on what is left behind and not only what should have been preserved, shedding the proper light on the knowledge of historical events, are the result of proper practices of studying archival sources, keeping and respecting them, looking at archives from the perspective of anyone who consults it for specific personal and professional needs, moving with respect to all that is preserved, with special attention to the training of future archivists, acknowledging the ethical and legal implications related to privacy of people, evaluating the selection and assessing records, considering the role of the digital technologies. All these aspects appear to be theoretical and practical principles, which involve the chance to properly train the professionalism of future archivists. The verb to form returns as an element of building, and meaning making, as a verb related to the collection of information, but also the selection of information. In this relationship of deep closeness between the educational and archival training, what emerges is the need to result management of complex elements. The shift from paper source to digital source entails a different approach to specific training. If it is true that medium is the message, a direct transition from paper to digital is not possible without changing the training approach it entails. Addressing information overload, the dynamism of documentary forms, the pervasive heterogeneity of information resource and media, the documentation of relationship within and between sources, the validation of resources, the granularity of description, the exploitation of context and structure in document collections, all entail a new rewrite approach to models and curricula able of training the new archivists of the present, but especially of the future. Thank you for attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Alessandro. Are there questions? In the meantime, the questions arrives. I'd like to say a few words. For example, Flavia, you said the principal goal, the focus of iMILK is to learn how to teach.
Yeah.
It is an important aspect for us because you said you referred about teaching archival research skills in history, and you referred also archival sciences. For analogy, we are understanding that iMILK is useful for archival sciences, for palaeography, for other disciplines.
Maybe used as well for the same purpose, to learn how to become an archival archivist, or to have archival competencies.
Yes, and if I seem to have understood that you are proposing educational paths in different environments, no only university, but different environments.
Also
yes.
in non-formal, informal environments, in professional contexts, real life, real world context.
What do you think, for example, about cooperation in education and educational paths between university teachers, university scholars, and archivists? For example, in other environments like School of Archives.
Yes, it could be of iMILK could be of some efficacy in this context, because the main scope is to have a booster to learn how to manage the archives, for instance. Allora, then you can do like an intertwining between university knowledge and archival knowledge, and melt them, or let them communicate in dialogue. I think it can be possible.
Yes.
Also because iMILK is a mobile learning management system, easy to use. Also for you do not need a classroom. Instead, you have to use it on the move. So
yes.
it's important. It can be used inside an archives.
Yes, it would be great for our community, I think. And are there questions? Zarko.
Thank you, Antonella, and thank you, Flavia and Alessandro, for a very interesting presentation. I have two questions. First, are there any experiences in concretely using this resource in field of palaeography and diplomatics? And maybe another question for Antonella. Do you have any ideas concerning using this resource in connection with Monasterium collaborative activities, maybe?
Yes.
we already tried iMILK in an educational pathway. So we have a concrete experience published in a RTH journal. Unfortunately, it's only in Italian, but the abstract is in English. Anyway, we saw that it works as a booster, because we have a volunteer champion of students of disciplines very different from education, like law or economy, and they learned about education really in few. Because through this like a short packaging of all contents, it has been very easy. But with Antonella, we are planning to use it concretely, applying it also in a field of diplomatics, palaeography. Antonella will choose, but Zacco is iMILK is a methodology. So you can apply to different disciplines, diverse disciplines. You can try, but it's new. So now we have not I've had enough time to begin the second step, that was to try together with diplomatics. But I think we will do next academic year.
We have the experience. I think we have the experience of Federica 3DSU, where we have inside the Monasterium tried in a different ways to introduce internal to the archivisms the connection with virtual learning environments is another kind of solution. But we have the first relation with Antonella and archivism in the experimentation of Federico 3DSU.
Thank you. It's a great idea. Yes, yes. For the question of Zarko, we are planning, or we are dreaming about a connection with iMILK and Monasterium. In this course, during this academic course, with Flavia and Alessandro, we had some experiences at distance from Monasterium, etc. But we are planning a course about this topic. There are two gaps, maybe. One, Monasterium is ready to spread contents for mobile devices. One. And two, I forget. I forgot. Another gap is probably the gap is a value, is a great value, because in iMILK there is a blog, there is a possibility of spread stories and other, like Flavia Santoianni said. And there is a little gap in Monasterium for social aspects, and because in the experience of the past courses, we had the difficulty because in Monasterium, but it is not the goal of Monasterium. There isn't a blog, a social aspect, etc. And a connection between Monasterium and iMILK, maybe in Federica too, it is a great idea. Zarko, what do you think about the connection,
The challenge. What do you think about the challenge?
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
maybe with my connection.
Good.
Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
okay,
Oh.
okay, thank you. So thank you for your answers. I understand, and yes, of course, Monasterium is a portal with other goals. You are right, Antonella, but maybe in connection with iMILK, it would be possible to post comments or give stories about archival research, brought some new charters or collections to Monasterium. Maybe both portals or resources could be connected. Not that in Monasterium you have to post blogs and comments, but you can do it on iMILK with Monasterium, maybe.
Yeah, and it's possible to link, to have links to resources.
If you is interested, you are invited to cooperate in this project, or all interested in.
Yes, thank you.
Are there some questions?
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe?
Hi all. Thanks for the interesting lesson. And I would like to know if this kind of application, iMILK, we can use it only in a synchronous way. I think about Federica Web Learning. The most lesson on this platform is non-synchronous.
No.
So maybe the blog can cannot be very useful if the lesson are only in a non-synchronous way. So I was thought if this lesson can be in presence.
Synchronous.
Yeah.
Maybe it can be used in a blended way.
Blended way.
See, it can be used, for instance, in an university classroom where you learn together, and then you tell, why don't we use some tools of iMILK for doing that. The next week we will see here to do it again, and we do. It's very flexible. You can use as you want. It's not foreseen for having synchronous online lessons.
Okay.
Or you have in presence lessons, and then you can very easily blend it, or you have asynchronous version, but we are favorable to asynchronous sometimes because our students are also working students, so
the flexibility.
They prefer, sometimes they love Federica because they want to can work in a bar in the evening, and then in the morning they can learn something and then rest, for instance. It's very, but in a way, an easy solution, because in my experience, I have done also some lessons to meet students. It was the COVID period, so online lessons, and then they were asking information through an on-demand chat, because one of the pillars of iMILK is that the teacher has to be completely available at on demand in each moment. This is very important. So you don't feel really the problem of the asynchronous. That is that you are apart, alone, and the world go
That was the question. Yes.
No.
I think I'm sorry, Professor Issa. I think the imagine is to improve for the next time a total learning experience, blending two experience and on-demand learning in a digital way. Is very important to imagine the context of learning where the people can test online learning, can test the presence when it's important, the presence, but it's important to don't imagine the learning experience in one way, in only one way. We for a lot of time have the solution of the learning is in front way, only in front way. The COVID changing the rules, and we have the possibility of blending the opportunity of platforms, the opportunity of relations. It's important, Professor Issa, to talk about the community of learning. The community of learning is important in iMILK. The opportunity of have a meeting, non-formal meeting, but for the cooperation for a formal meeting, for formal learning.
We study how to overcome the gap for the online learning and in presence learning, and we believe that there are some aspects like adaptation aspects or social aspects Alessandro was highlighting that can help to reduce the sensation, the feeling of being alone. And we usually try to apply this like an embodied approach to the online learning.
Thank you.
About these last words, effectively, iMILK can be important to reinforce the learning community in Monasterium, because we had similar experiences about transnational and transversal learning community, but at it was difficult to, in some cases, to explain the students the context of Monasterium. In the context of Monasterium, in the context of their course, there is a large community, community of ICARUS, and I explained...
Actual, not the historical context, the actual context.
Yes, the context, the social context too, and the same goals between archivists of Europe and students in Naples. And I explained this, but a project like iMILK can be a real experience of this content.
Can help in situating their cognition and in letting them be more involved, of course.
Yes.
Sí.
Are there some questions too? Five minutes. Alessandro, pointed out today an important aspect. More and more resources are in digital environment today, and it needs a new type of training, of education, a new type of education, and it is important. It is a lack in some disciplines because in Italy, but maybe in other countries, there is a lack of discussion about this point. It is important. And the question is, you in iMILK had experience about a cooperation with other disciplines, what disciplines? I don't remember in this moment.
Law, economist, mainly, architecture, and some like some derivation of these disciplines, capito, like international affairs, some disciplines near but hierarchically connected to the main.
In this case, it was a discussion about the methodology.
It happened a so strange thing, because we as educators, we believe that our knowledge is so peculiar, no? It's so particular, and so we usually we spend a lot of time for teaching to our education students how to teach, what to do, and the course is of 60 hours. And at the end of the course, they manage educational models. And these students coming from so different and also distant disciplines, they instead, I was very surprised because they immediately learned about it. Only by one important phase is when students leave a comment on the experience of other students. So they do, each student does an experience and they write a story about this experience. Then they learn the content, then they label the experiences of other students. They label this experience. This involves so much critical thinking. There was an educational growth very rapid. So it's strange, but true. So I published results because they give an interpretation of educational models, correct interpretation without having a long study, but just having studied few. So maybe it's a moment of co-creation, the moment when they label. There are some steps, learning, but also co-learning, and then discussing, and then experiencing, and then co-creating an interpretation. And this interpretation doesn't become a common interpretation. It is shared, but is singular, is personalized.
Maybe they want to recognize in others some aspects of their lives, the lay aspect of learning is important.
Of the way of teaching, or how they imagine teaching.
Is a specular vision of the auto-realization of the learning processes. It's true. Is in a little time they recognize a lot of the principles of the theoretical or practical
without no background, without no knowledge background.
you can start to study pedagogy at the moment.
With iMILK, it's easy.
It's really easy.
Okay. Thank you very much for your beautiful presentation. And Tatiana, no, the hand of Tatiana.
I was only clapping, you know, the virtual clapping sign. So very much for this interesting presentation also from my side. So I did not want to interrupt you now. I was only clapping, Antonella, if you want to go on. Okay.
We will continue to discuss in other form.
Yes, yes. So I am very much looking forward to see where this project is going, and also maybe with a collaboration with Monasterium, we will see. So thank you very much. And the last point from my side would be that I would like to inform you that, as usual, we will upload this recording on our ICARUS YouTube channel. So you can spread it and disseminate it so more people can see your presentation. Okay.
If you want to give us the link.
Yes, of course, I will. I will do so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Bye bye.
So maybe one announcement at the end. Of course, thank you also from my side for the very interesting presentation and discussion, and thank you for attending our last online lecture in this season. We are following in September. We have already a date. It's the 20th of September, and the online lecture about the Monasterium project, already mentioned several times today, will be held by Professor Georg Vogeler from the University of Graz. We will post it on our website once we have a precise title. But until then, have a nice summer, and thank you very much